The observation deck of the Galactic Council's primary station hung suspended in the void between stars, a monument to 10,000 years of peace through mutual fear. Supreme Commander Vexlar stood before the curved transparisteel viewport, his forearms clasped behind his chitinous back, watching the distant blue marble that had just joined their ranks. Earth. Another primitive species granted entry, muttered Ambassador Threll from somewhere behind him. The Korthian's disgust was palpable. Mammals. Soft-skinned, weak-boned, barely 3 centuries beyond their first crude rockets. Vexlar said nothing. He had commanded fleets for 60 cycles, had seen civilizations rise and fall, had studied war in all its forms across 100 worlds, and something about the humans troubled him. The council chamber had erupted in barely concealed mockery when Earth's representative presented their credentials. Single heart species, no natural armor, no venom, no psionics. Their homeworld wasn't even properly classified, somehow caught between Death World and Garden World, as if their planet itself couldn't decide what it wanted to be. But Vexlar had read the files. All of them. The humans had unified their entire species in less than 2 centuries after discovering atomic fission. They had survived their own weapons of mass extinction not once but repeatedly, growing stronger each time. Their literature was filled with stories of war, thousands of years of it documented, analyzed, romanticized, and mourned in equal measure. Sir, his aide approached, mandibles clicking nervously. The human delegation has submitted their military assessment as requested. Vexlar took the datapad, his primary eyes scanning while his secondary eyes remained fixed on Earth. Standard protocol required all new members to provide detailed military capability reports. Most species proudly displayed their genetic warriors, their breeding programs, their specialized combat castes born and raised for battle. The human report was different. This cannot be correct, Vexlar said quietly. Sir, according to this, humanity fields no genetic warriors, no breeding programs, no combat castes. His claw traced down the glowing text. Their military forces are comprised entirely of volunteers. That is what they claim, Commander. Vexlar's mandibles spread in what might have been confusion or disbelief. It says here that any human civilian, upon reaching maturity, may choose to become a soldier. They undergo training for a mere 12 to 16 weeks, then are deployed as frontline combat personnel. Surely they mean auxiliary forces, sir, support roles. But Vexlar was reading deeper now, his pulse quickening despite himself. No, it explicitly states these are combat infantry. And here, his claw stabbed at another section, they call them regular forces, as if this is normal. He pulled up visual records from Earth's own archives, footage humanity had freely provided as part of their cultural exchange. What he saw defied everything he understood about warfare. Humans, soft, fragile humans, charging through explosions. Humans holding positions under withering fire. Humans carrying their wounded across battlefields that would kill a Korthian in minutes. Humans fighting in deserts that matched the surface of small stars. In jungles where the air itself was poison. In frozen wastes where even the Glacian Imperium struggled. Where are their bred warriors? Vexlar whispered. Sir? Where are their genetically enhanced shock troops? Their specialized combat breeds? His voice was rising now, drawing attention from other officers on the deck. This footage shows battles across a dozen different biomes, in conditions that would require specialized evolution, yet the same regular soldiers operate in all of them. He pulled up more files, his 4 hands moving frantically across multiple datapads now. Earth's military history spanned millennia. Empires rising and falling, yes, but always, the soldiers were drawn from the common population. Farmers became warriors, merchants became marines, teachers became tankers. They trained them, Vexlar breathed, understanding dawning like a cold sun. They take ordinary civilians and train them to fight anywhere. Everywhere. His aide shifted uncomfortably. Surely that is inefficient, sir. Proper warriors require generations of selective breeding. Pull up the casualty reports from their last global conflict. The numbers materialized in holographic light before them. Vexlar felt his blood chill in his veins. 85 million dead, he read aloud. 85 million, and they continued fighting. For 6 years. And these were not their warrior caste. These were ordinary citizens who became soldiers. Perhaps they simply breed quickly. No. Vexlar cut him off, pulling up Earth's demographic data. Their reproduction rate is average, if not below average, for mammals. Every death meant something to them. Every soldier had a family, a life they left behind. He turned from the viewports to face his aide directly, all four eyes locked on him. Do you understand what this means? For 10,000 years we have maintained peace through the threat of our warrior castes. The Korthians breed for strength. The Velnari engineer their soldiers from birth. The Thressen clone their perfect fighters. We assumed any species capable of joining the Council would follow the same path. And the humans? Vexlar looked back at Earth, at the small blue world that had somehow spawned something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans don't have a warrior caste, he said quietly. Every one of them is a potential warrior. They don't breed soldiers, they forge them from whoever volunteers. Farmers and poets, scientists and artists, they take the ordinary and make them extraordinary through nothing but discipline, training, choice. His aide's mandibles clicked nervously. Surely you don't believe— I believe, Vexlar interrupted, that we have made a grave error in judgment. We mocked them for having no specialized warriors. But what if— He paused, the implication almost too vast to speak aloud. What if every human is already a potential soldier? What if their weakness is that they haven't yet chosen to be strong? The observation deck had grown quiet. Other officers had gathered, drawn by Vexlar's distress. We need to know more, he said finally. Arrange a demonstration. I want to see these regular soldiers in action. And if your fears are justified, Commander— Vexlar looked out at the stars, at the vast expanse of space they had protected for millennia, through the threat of their perfect warriors. Then we hope, he said quietly, that humanity chooses to remain our friend. The training grounds of Sector 7 had been hastily converted into an observation arena. 36 species representatives filled the floating platforms that ringed the vast facility, a carefully controlled environment that could simulate any battlefield condition known to galactic civilization. Supreme Commander Vexlar stood at the central podium, his forearms tense despite his practiced composure. Below, on the staging grounds, a single human unit prepared for the demonstration. 40 soldiers, not their elite special forces, not their decorated veterans, just regular troops. A standard infantry platoon pulled from routine rotation on one of Earth's orbital defense stations. This is what concerns you? Ambassador Threll's voice dripped with contempt. They look like children playing dress-up. Vexlar said nothing. He had studied the files obsessively for 3 weeks since that first discovery. These 40 humans averaged 24 cycles in age. Most had been civilians less than 2 cycles ago. Students, workers. One had been a musician. Now they stood in formation, weapons held with casual confidence, their faces obscured by helmets that seemed primitive compared to the neural link combat systems most species employed. Begin Scenario 1, Vexlar ordered. The environment shifted. Desert. Temperature rising to match the surface conditions of Korthius Prime, hot enough to cook unprotected flesh in minutes. The kind of heat that required generations of evolution to survive. The humans didn't hesitate. They moved as one organism, spreading into tactical positions with practiced efficiency. Their leader, a woman called Sergeant Chen according to the manifest, used hand signals to direct her unit. Not neural links, not psionic communication, simple gestures that every human soldier apparently understood instinctively. The heat will incapacitate them in moments, Threll predicted smugly, but the humans kept moving. They identified simulated enemy positions, coordinated fire patterns, executed flanking maneuvers. One soldier fell, struck by a simulation marker. Immediately, 2 others changed position to cover the gap, while a fourth, a medic Vexlar noted, moved to provide aid. 5 minutes, 10, 15, the humans fought on. Scenario 2, Vexlar commanded, his voice tight. The environment transformed. Arctic conditions. Temperature plummeting to levels that would freeze Velnari blood in their veins. Wind speeds that could shred unprotected flesh. The humans adjusted without pause. They modified their formation, moved differently, shorter, more controlled movements. They found cover in the simulated ice formations, used the wind itself to mask their approach. A murmur rippled through the observation platforms. They're adapting, someone whispered. Scenario 3. Jungle. Toxic atmosphere. Visibility near zero, the kind of environment where the Thressen dominated with their enhanced sensory organs. The humans produced lights attached to their weapons, communicated through throat microphones, moved in pairs where no single soldier was ever isolated. When the simulation threw carnivorous plants at them, a nasty surprise Vexlar had added personally. They responded with controlled aggression and tactical withdrawal, losing not a single unit. How? Threll's smugness had evaporated. They have no specialized adaptations. Their equipment is primitive. How are they functioning in these conditions? Vexlar pulled up the biometric data streaming from the human soldiers. His eyes widened. They're suffering, he said quietly. Their heart rates are elevated. Their bodies are under tremendous stress. In the desert scenario, several were approaching heat stroke. In the Arctic, 2 developed early-stage frostbite. Then why didn't they stop? Because, Vexlar said, understanding crystallizing like ice in his chest. They chose not to. Scenario 4, he commanded, his voice barely a whisper now. The environment shifted to something no galactic military would ever request. Urban warfare, civilian casualties possible, collateral damage likely. The moral complexity that made most warrior castes falter. The humans slowed, not from weakness but from care. They cleared buildings methodically. They checked corners. They used non-lethal force options when possible. When the simulation presented them with an impossible choice, a hidden enemy combatant using a civilian as a shield, Sergeant Chen made her squad hold fire for 17 seconds while they maneuvered, for a clean shot. 17 seconds that could have gotten them all killed. But they waited. They're protecting the simulated civilians, Ambassador Velnash observed, her crystalline voice tinged with confusion. They're prioritizing non-combatants over tactical advantage. Scenario 5, Vexlar said, knowing this would be the cruelest test. Vacuum. Hard vacuum with simulated hull breaches, zero gravity, and system failures. The environment where even the Glacian shock troopers born in the void sometimes panicked. The humans sealed their suits with practiced efficiency. They moved differently again, understanding 3-dimensional movement instinctively despite being a gravity-bound species. When one soldier's suit registered a leak, 3 others immediately changed trajectory to assist, tethering themselves together to prevent loss. Not one soldier abandoned, not one left behind. The demonstration ended after 2 hours. 40 human soldiers stood in formation once more, exhausted, some injured but unbroken. Not a single simulated fatality, not one abandoned objective. The observation deck was silent. Vexlar descended to the floor, approaching Sergeant Chen directly. She removed her helmet, revealing a young face streaked with sweat, eyes that held something he had seen in veteran warriors 3 times her age. "Sergeant," he said carefully, "your soldiers performed adequately." "Adequately?" She almost smiled. "We'll do better next time, sir." "You trained for only 16 weeks?" "Basic training, yes, sir. But we train every day after that. Training never stops." "And before you were soldiers?" "I was a school teacher. Rodriguez over there was studying engineering. Kim worked in his family's restaurant." She shrugged. "Regular people, sir." "Regular," Vexlar repeated the word like a curse. "Yes, sir. That's what we are. Regular army." Vexlar turned to face the assembled council representatives, his forearms spread wide. "Honored delegates," he said, his voice carrying across the silent arena. "I have reviewed Earth's military history extensively. These 40 soldiers you witnessed today are not exceptional by human standards. They are, by humanity's own definition, average, typical, regular." He paused, letting the weight of that sink in. Earth's current military comprises approximately 20 million such soldiers. 20 million individuals who volunteered to become warriors, who trained in conditions that would kill most species, who fight with discipline and compassion in equal measure. Another pause. And behind those 20 million soldiers stand 8 billion more humans. 8 billion civilians who could, at any moment, choose to become what you witnessed here today. Ambassador Threll found his voice. "You're saying every human is a potential soldier?" "No," Vexlar corrected, his eyes finding Sergeant Chen's once more. She stood at attention, exhausted but unbowed, and he finally understood what truly terrified him. "I'm saying every human is already a soldier. They're just waiting to be asked." The observation deck erupted into chaos, but Vexlar barely heard it. He was too busy calculating what it would mean if humanity, gentle, optimistic humanity, ever decided to truly mobilize. The galaxy had never seen a species like this. Warriors born not from genetic design or selective breeding, but from choice, from training, from will. And will, he was learning, was the most dangerous weapon of all. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the demonstration. The great chamber, designed to inspire awe and cooperation, now felt suffocating. Representatives from 47 species filled the curved tiers, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear and calculation. Supreme Commander Vexlar stood at the central platform, watching the chaos unfold with growing dread. The humans had been politely asked to remain in their diplomatic quarters. They had agreed with that same unsettling courtesy that characterized everything they did. We must act now. While their numbers are still manageable, Ambassador Threll was saying, his voice cutting through the noise. 20 million soldiers may seem insignificant, but you saw what 40 of them could do. Imagine 20 million. Imagine 8 billion. You propose what exactly? Ambassador Velnash's crystalline form reflected the chamber's lights like a prism. Preemptive war against a council member? Based on fear of what they might become? Based on certainty of what they will become? Threll slammed his appendage against the podium. They are a warrior species in disguise, every one of them a potential threat. They have broken no laws, Velnash countered, made no threats. They have been nothing but cooperative since joining the council. Vexlar listened to them argue, his mind elsewhere. He had spent the night reviewing more of Earth's history, and what he found had only deepened his unease. Humanity had fought wars that lasted years, decades, even centuries. They had developed weapons capable of extinguishing all life on their planet, then collectively chose not to use them. They had written rules for warfare, treaties to protect civilians and prisoners, codes of conduct that their soldiers followed even when dying. They were warriors who dreamed of peace, soldiers who valued life. It made them more dangerous, not less. The chair recognizes Supreme Commander Vexlar. The council speaker's voice boomed. The chamber fell silent. Vexlar moved to the central platform, his forearms held in a posture of respect. Honored delegates, he began. I have studied humanity's military capabilities more extensively than anyone in this chamber. I requested the demonstration. I analyzed the results, he paused, choosing his next words carefully. And I believe we are asking the wrong question. Confused murmurs rippled through the tiers. The question is not whether humanity poses a threat, Vexlar continued. Clearly they do. Any species capable of transforming ordinary civilians into effective soldiers within weeks of fighting in any environment, of maintaining discipline and compassion under fire. Such a species is formidable. Then you agree we must act? Threll pressed, no. Vexlar's voice hardened. Because the real question is, what do we want humanity to become? He activated the holographic display, showing footage from the demonstration. Sergeant Chen and her unit moving through the simulated urban warfare scenario, holding fire to protect civilians. We have maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years through mutual deterrence. Each species fields their warrior caste, their perfect soldiers, their instruments of war, and we all understand that actual warfare would be mutually devastating. He changed the image to show historical footage from Earth. Humans in primitive uniforms, fighting in trenches, humans storming beaches under withering fire, humans holding positions against impossible odds. But humanity has something we lost millennia ago. They remember what war costs. They document it, mourn it, teach it to their children not as glory but as tragedy. Every soldier they field has chosen to serve knowing they might die, knowing they might have to kill. Another image, a human medic treating an enemy combatant, a human soldier sharing rations with civilian refugees, a human commander refusing an order he deemed immoral. They have rules for war, Vexlar said quietly. They have honor in combat. They have compassion for enemies. These are not traits we bred into our warrior castes. These are traits that emerge from soldiers who remember they were civilians first. Pretty words, Threll sneered. But they change nothing. Humanity is a threat. You're right, Vexlar agreed, and the chamber gasped. Humanity is a threat, but only if we make them one. He turned off the display and faced the council directly. We have a choice. We can treat humanity as an enemy waiting to happen, restrict their military, limit their expansion, view them with suspicion and fear. We can validate their warriors' instincts by showing them that the galaxy is indeed hostile, that peace is an illusion, That strength is the only language the stars understand. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every tear. Or we can embrace what makes them unique. We can show them a galaxy that values peace not because it fears war, but because it has evolved beyond it. We can prove that their compassion is not weakness, that their choice to serve is respected, that their discipline and honor have a place in a civilized universe. And if you're wrong? Velnash asked quietly. If they become the threat you fear? Vexlar was silent for a long moment. Then we will have 8 billion humans who know we gave them a chance, who saw us choose trust over fear, who understand that we valued peace enough to risk vulnerability. That won't stop them from destroying us. No, Vexlar admitted, but it might stop them from wanting to. The chamber erupted again, but Vexlar raised his arms for silence. I propose we do nothing, he said, and the words fell like stones into still water. No restrictions. No special oversight. We treat humanity as we would any other council member. We trust them to remain the people who wrote rules for war, who mourn their dead, who teach their children that peace is worth dying for. That's insane, Threll hissed. Perhaps, Vexlar agreed. But consider the alternative. If we act out of fear, we prove to humanity that the galaxy operates on strength alone. We teach them that kindness is foolishness, that trust is weakness, that the only way to survive is to be stronger than everyone else. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. And if we teach humanity that lesson, if we convince them that the galaxy is truly hostile, if we force them to become the warriors they're capable of being. He let the silence stretch. Then may the stars have mercy on us all. Because they won't, the vote was called. It was closer than Vexlar had hoped, but the motion passed. Humanity would remain an unrestricted council member. No special oversight, no limitations. Trust by the slimmest of margins. Vexlar found himself at the observation deck again that night, staring at Earth, somewhere down there. Sergeant Chen was probably sleeping, dreaming ordinary dreams. Around her, 8 billion humans lived their lives, teaching, building, loving, creating. Regular people. His aide approached quietly. Do you truly believe they'll remain peaceful, Commander? Vexlar was silent for a long time. I believe, he said finally, that we just made the most important choice in galactic history. We chose to see humanity not as warriors pretending to be civilians, but as civilians who become warriors when they must. And if that's not enough? Vexlar watched Earth spin slowly in the void. A blue marble that had somehow produced the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever encountered. Ordinary people who refused to stay ordinary when something mattered. Then we hope, he said quietly, that when humanity finally shows us what they're truly capable of, they remember that we gave them a choice too. Behind them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, home to 20 million soldiers and 8 billion more who were just living their lives. Regular people in a regular world, unaware that the galaxy had just bet its future on humanity's choice to remain kind. In the end, Vexlar thought, perhaps that was what made them most dangerous of all. Not their strength or their discipline or their ability to fight anywhere, but their capacity to be strong and choose gentleness anyway, to be capable of war and prefer peace, to be warriors who would rather be anything else. The galaxy would watch. The galaxy would wait. And the humans, the beautiful, terrifying humans, would continue to be exactly what they had always been. Regular, until the day the galaxy needed them to be something more.